Time zone, sweet world. It is Tuesday, January 14th, 2025. Welcome into Atham Online, a broadcast about the video games industry. What's up? My name's Atham. I play video games on the internet. Sometimes I talk about them. Thank you, That's Games, for the resub. 13 months. Amazing. Hey, we're back on Tuesday. It's time for the news. Let's do some new stuff. That's the idea. Once again, I will challenge myself to get through this as fast as I can and watch it'll drag on for like half an hour. But hey, what can you do? Let's get started. We're getting right into it with Ubisoft. So this is an article that is in GameFile. So you'll see me most often on Tuesdays talking about GameFile because I subscribe to GameFile and I get articles from them. But this is about an event that happened last week. So Ubisoft had held he puts it here as a surprise call for investors, but I saw it in the news as like as a emergency call for investors. And so this kind of, it looked like they were telling investors and probably creditors and whatever that they were exploring options for the company that include potential sale, merger, or splitting off of parts of the business, and that they've hired external advisors to provide independent advice to find the best outcomes for shareholders. And so this is hinting that once again that big changes are on the horizon. And so they talked about Yves Guillemot, who's the CEO and the chair of their board. We're talking about several potential paths to generate value from Ubisoft's assets and franchises. But stock analysts on the call pressed for more detail, which Guillemot and the CFO Frédéric Duguay declined to provide any further information. This is kind of all coming around the time where Ubisoft has once again delayed Assassin's Creed Shadows. This will be delayed till March 20th, 2025. And sort of the other thing that was brought up here was the kind of a trend in reducing headcount for Ubisoft. So as of September 30th, 2022, their headcount was around 20.7 thousand. 2023 down to just over 19,000. At 2024, 18.6 thousand of a headcount, and even smaller since last reported. But it's not only the headcount that's getting smaller, it's also their share price has tanked and continues to tank. So it's dropped 46% from the last year. It's down 80% from 5 years ago. And like many other participants in this industry, it's kind of hits driven in large part, or at least that's what people drive after anyway. And it seems like they've just haven't been able to churn them out. So here in this article, for 9 of the last 10 years of the 2010s, it had at least one game among the top 10 best-selling games in the U.S. Since then, it's had one in 2020, and that's it. They also shut down X-Defiant, right? That was the free-to-play shooter that rather abruptly came down because it just wasn't. I don't know. It just wasn't successful. It didn't meet their expectations, and yet they have more announcements planned for later in this year. And there has been some kind of noise around having things ready for a potential Nintendo Switch 2. Although maybe that would just end up being ports of stuff. I'm not quite sure. So we'll have to see what comes out of that. The other thing that's going around here, so one of the other things here is Star Wars Outlaws was a game that I haven't tried, that I would like to play, but was another one of these Star Wars games that came out and was kind of, I don't know, it felt like it met some kind of underwhelming response from video game players. and also wasn't helped by being absent, being not on Steam as well. And so today, the company has less and less net bookings, which is kind of a measure of player spending, but it's a measure of kind of unearned revenue that players would spend on these games. So it's like pre-orders and things like this. But also, it could also include like estimates of microtransaction and whatever else, things like that. And they have blamed this kind of like, so lower projections on net bookings, on lower than expected holiday sales. So yeah, that's kind of as far as that article goes. Many questions being asked. But you know, I guess when I had gotten into this kind of thing, I also looked at the board of directors and kind of what it's made up of and who's on there, right? And it struck me that the Guillemot family, in large part, is on the board. So Yves Guillemot is the chairman of the board. They have other committee members that are independent from the Guillemot family, including Laurence Hubert Moy and Corianne Fernandez Handelsman. But the Guillemot family also has Christian Guillemot on the audit committee, Michel Guillemot, Claude Guillemot, and Gerard Guillemot. And then other independent board members include Belen Essieu-Trujillo, Olfa Zorgati, Lionel Boucher, and Wubenhorst. And so, like, by my count, there's like, okay, so 6 independent board members that I could see there on, I was using Market Screener, and at least 4 family members, plus Guy as the chair. Right? You know, I don't know whether to say it's normal or not normal, but I would say that in like a very pure theoretical perspective on how these things are supposed to work, you're supposed to have a senior management team, you know, including so that's your CEO, your CFO, your CTO, whatever, like all those people that report to an independent board of directors. And importantly, the CEO, right, even if it's a family business that has gone public, should not be on the board of directors, and certainly they shouldn't be the chair of the board of directors. I mean, I think in smaller kind of outfits, it makes sense that the owners will also be on the board, and they can be participating members and they can be voting members, but they shouldn't necessarily be the chairman, the chairperson of the board, because you put yourself under a self-review threat. You know, it makes it really hard for you to operate in the best interests of that entire business, and so your judgment can get clouded. And you know, when we see a lot of this stuff come out about Ubisoft, I think about that. You know, and it makes me doubt anything that they have to say, really. Because, you know, they can say that they're getting independent advisors this and this, that, the other, but at the end of the day, they have a huge presence in decision-making in a capacity that is supposed to be independent and external, so as to provide the best advice. Anyway, I thought that was neat, an interesting thing to point out. There you have it. Anything else here? Oh, that's it. Let's move on. So this next thing is the Gamesight annual state of marketing. This is an interesting report. So they've released their annual state of performance marketing report. This thing, I skimmed through it. It gives insights to what kind of platforms and advertising strategies are effective for game studios, and they talk about they talk a lot about this idea called conversion rate, which is, I guess, a percentage of viewers or people that end up buying the thing that you're trying to market, is how I understand that. And so when I kind of looked at this, the one thing that popped out was trends in conversion rates. So Twitch has an 11.75% conversion rate in 2024, and that is the highest out of all the top 10 ad networks, which include Twitch. So from top to bottom on this ranking for 2024, Twitch, Google Ads, Reddit, YouTube, Twitter or X, TikTok, Meta, Snapchat, Bing, and something called DV60 that I've never heard of before. So that was kind of interesting. I think, Twitch had this kind of high conversion rate, and it was attributed to having unskippable ads, and to being able to be very targeted towards a gaming crowd. But YouTube was also great for keeping players engaged in the long term. It was also interesting to see that Reddit has kind of this power here as well. I think so. Google Ads has a 5.16% conversion rate. Reddit has a 4% conversion rate. And apparently there's something gone on at Reddit that they've essentially overhauled a ad system, which has boosted retention rate as well, which I guess is probably how people are returning to. I should have looked up the definitions of these things. Retention, the rate at which users continue to return to and engage with the game, advertised during a 7-day interval. Interesting. So that was cool. Hey, Twitch. Twitch ads seem to be having an impact. Although, the one thing that was interesting to see here as well, if I dig into one of these slides, it might be somewhere at the back. Oh no, I think it's somewhere at the front. One of their slides here has what platforms their customers use, I think, is what this is. It's trends in media plan frequency. So how often these networks show up in customers' media plans. And so despite Twitch being so high value in terms of the conversion rate and whatnot, it looks like Twitch is like the seventh most popular choice. So the most popular choices from the advertisers, or from people who want to advertise, are Meta, 75% showing up in their media plans, followed by Google Ads, which is fine. That's like second on conversion. Then YouTube, 44% of the time showing up in plans. Then TikTok, 37%. Twitter, 34%. Reddit, 32%, and so on. Then DV60, then Twitch. And Twitch only shows up about one out of 5 times in these media plans. So hey, I don't know. Maybe Twitch will figure into more of these marketing plans. Check that report out. That's a cool thing, an interesting thing. Moving rapidly on, Switch 2. There's been a lot of noise about the Switch 2. I'm not going to talk too much about the Switch 2 because I'm not, it's a lot of noise, and let's be honest, I'm not too familiar. I haven't been keeping up too much. But certainly, I'd be remiss to say, or I'd be remiss to not say that there have been multiple reports, starting from a leaker of all things, that Nintendo may release the Switch 2 very soon, possibly this week, possibly Thursday, which I find very strange. I think it's a very strange thing that they would do that now in January And I think even stranger that like some of these release windows or whatever are pointing towards release dates that are quite soon, right? Like we're January, February, March, April, May, like 5 months away, 4 or 5 months. It's a bit strange because I feel like sure, like I was looking over the VG charts and I'm looking at all this kind of stuff. If you look at the VG charts and you look at how sales for the Switch trended when it released, you'll see like sales going up the first 2 years gradually. And I think for most consoles, you can get a chart there that shows you all the consoles and kind of how their hardware sales went over time. And you'll notice kind of this trend, which is, from the first 2 to 4 years, there is like a increasing trend on how many units that thing is pushing. And invariably it will peak and then there will be a diminishing return. They'll still sell, but it'll slowly kind of decline, right? Which means that if you're somebody who's trying to maximize the sales of your console, then you want to make the biggest, best impact that you can possibly have over those first 2 years, right? Basically, is kind of how that works. And so it would be strange to me that they would just, get pressured by all this noise and then, release something so soon without even putting any marketing behind it. And I mean, they'll have enough time to support it with marketing as the thing launches and all of that, sure. But it strikes me as odd that they would do something in a rush and kind of blow an opportunity to really milk this thing. It's been a long time. And so, like, also, yeah, sure, maybe it's been a long time, and so maybe there's also a lot of pent-up demand. But, I think it's also kind of a strange thing to just assume that, yeah, it's Nintendo. They'll be fine. They don't, like, it's, everything will work itself out because it's Nintendo. It's like, I don't know. I think there's more work that has to go into it than that. So, anyway. What do I know? We'll see. We'll see what happens. But certainly something to keep your eyes on. There's details on hardware specifications that came out. That's fine. Whatever. More RAM, more storage, and potentially 4K support. But I'm not sure. And that it would be backward compatible. Things like this. Well, actually, so the one thing that did stand out to me that I did want to talk about was this article that was there in GameSpot. This was Blair Marnell. So at CES 2025, this accessories producer called Genki had their kind of Switch 2 accessories on display. And they had a mock-up of what the Switch 2 would look like, which is kind of one of the many things that are out here generating all this buzz around the Nintendo Switch 2. And so here's the quote. Journalist Julian Teluk was the first to report about Nintendo's lawyers getting involved over the incident. He also related that someone at Genki told him that the company brushed off the lawyers because there was no non-disclosure agreement signed with Nintendo. I talked to the guy from Genki just behind me. He told me that Nintendo had stopped by with lawyers. They had nothing to be reprimanded for because they had never signed a paper with Nintendo. No confidentiality agreement, no NDA, said Saluk. Which is hilarious. Like the gall to do something like that. Nintendo subsequently issued its own statement. The gaming hardware that Genki claims to be Nintendo hardware at CES is not official and was not provided by the company to the company by Nintendo. While speaking with IGN, a Genki representative expressed surprise at the story and shared the company's belief that what was shown had already been leaked beforehand. So it makes it really sound like the people over at Genki were like, well, I mean, this stuff's already, there's like all kinds of leaks happening and all this stuff is out here unconfirmed around. So what the hell? Why can't we just go out there? Also, we don't have any paperwork that is holding us to not saying anything. So why not just go for it? which I think, is a spot of bad business, let's say. That's kind of weird. You can probably expect that Nintendo won't work with Genki again in any formal or maybe informal way. I don't know. I certainly wouldn't if you can't trust your partners. But yeah, real interesting stuff there. You got to be careful. You got to be careful with who you partner with and for what, and you have to be really clear on what your expectations are and what the rules are. Although with something like accessories, I wonder if it's once the thing's already out there, I'm pretty sure anyone's free to just go ahead and make something for the thing, right? Like that's not. I don't think Nintendo has anything that they can prevent to do about that, nor would they really want to. What does it matter? But I think the specific nature of this is that they probably had entered some sort of agreement with. And by the way, an agreement can be verbal. You can make a verbal agreement that will hold up in a court of law. But they made some sort of agreement with Genki, giving them some specifications so that they could come up with some accessories which could be really then released in a timely fashion for whenever this thing is supposed to launch. And, then also has a kind of mutual reinforcing effect with sales. And also I'm sure Nintendo would make some portion of revenue from accessory sales as well. So that's kind of wild, but that's it for Nintendo. Let's move on. The Sonic 3 movie. I was Azure Kale was mentioning that they had gone to see the Sonic movie, and I had noticed that it is now the second highest grossing video game movie of all time in North America, behind only Super Mario Brothers. So of course, Keanu Reeves had joined the cast as Shadow the Hedgehog. It has grossed over $204 million domestically. It earned $11 million across 3,582 locations over the weekend. The global tally is $384.8 million. It has overtaken Sonic 2. And something else here about Uncharted. Let's try to see if there's anything else in here to talk about. No. Other than, more video game movies is basically the shot. Including a Minecraft movie, which will be April 4th. Until Dawn, April 25th. Mortal Kombat 2, October 24th. And Five Nights at Freddy's 2, December 5th. Sonic has now earned over more than $1 billion across its 3 films, and there will be a 4th Sonic movie set to release in 2027. So hey, congrats to Sonic. Last thing here, Toadman Interactive shuts down with layoffs at Piranha Games. So 38 employees were let go. 69 workers are affected by the closure. So Swedish games firm, this is Sophie McEvoy from GameIndustry.biz. Swedish games firm Enad Global 7, EG7, initiated the wind down of Toadman Interactive, laid off 38 employees. The decision was due to continued industry challenges and the studio's inability to secure new work for hire contracts at a necessary pace. 69 employees and subcontractors will be affected by the wind down, with 42 staying on to fulfill contracts of protected projects. Last September, Toadman had closed offices in Stockholm, Visby, Oslo, in addition to staff members at Berlin studios. The quote that was here from their CEO, EG7 CEO, G-Ham, The team at Piranha truly delivered a high quality game that exceeded both internal as well as external expectations in terms of quality, story, and gameplay. That's relating to the release of MechWarrior 5 Clans. Despite the phenomenal work by the team at Piranha, the game failed to reach new audiences and expand its core audience as expected, and therefore has not met the necessary sales targets, which has forced us to undertake necessary actions. This one made me think about Masahiro Sakurai. So I frequent YouTube, and I got a notification on YouTube about a new video from Masahiro Sakurai. So I went and checked it out. He has a channel here. It's Masahiro Sakurai on Creating Games, where he does these kind of like 5-minute to 10-minute videos on topics in games across from, being a professional and being an employee, or being an owner, an indie, to game concepts, to game design, to whatever. There's several categories of videos in his playlists. And he is kind of winding down that channel. He had started that channel probably somewhere over COVID, I think maybe 2-3 years ago, something. And he is now winding it down. But of course the content is all there, so I've been going back and kind of watching. I'd watched some, but not in a really concerted way. I've been going back and watching a lot of his videos. One of the first videos that he did was a video on Kirby's Dream Land. And this is filed under game concepts. And I think one of the things that he talks about in this video is this idea of in Kirby's Dream Land, he was trying to direct certain things in that game that would lower the bar, kind of lower the level of difficulty and the complexity to allow beginners in the game. And people really questioned him for that and asked him, like, are you sure that you want to do this? And he kind of just charged on. He says, yes, I want to do this. And so the things that he mentions in that video are things like, in those games of the time, on the NES, for example, if you're playing a Castlevania, there's a lot of knockback, and it's really easy to fall into a pit. And as soon as you fall into a pit, that's it. You're done. And you got to start again. Mulhanzi. Ninja Gaiden, same kind of deal. Are some of the things that he shows there. But with this Kirby game, it's a little bit different. Sure, there are pits, and if you fall into pits, you either die or resets. I can't exactly remember, but the main thing here is that with that, with Kirby, you can fly. You get like a number of puffs where you can, float or essentially fly, right? And so that kind of mitigates the risk reward concept that is there, that he's quite kind of big on. It's one of his main things that he starts out talking about. And so when we think about MechWarrior, and I've played some of the older MechWarrior, I've certainly played MechWarrior Online, a very complex, hard to get into type of game was my experience with that. I didn't try MechWarrior 5, but MechWarrior in general, when I think about it, but also very rewarding, And so when you're trying to balance these things with how complex it is and how much risk versus how much reward does the player have to take / can the player get, you are ultimately trading off. If you're trying to make things more easy and more balanced and whatever else, then in some sense you're taking away some of those things. So it's a very tricky balance to make. And I think that if you have to do that with every single thing that you're putting out, then you might get into a place where it's just a lot of homogeneity. And I think homogeneity is very boring if everything's all the same. You might as well not have anything at all. So that's a tough spot for MechWarrior to be in. It's sad to see the studio get closed down. They had worked on some independent things. They had Evil v Evil, Immortal Unchained, Westmark Manor, Bloodsports.tv, but they had done a lot of contract work on many games that we are familiar with, like Vermintides, like PlanetSide 2, Killing Floor, Calamity, Lord of the Rings Online, DC Universe Online, EverQuest. So best of luck to them. I'm sure, well, I'm not going to make any assumptions on how they'll fare out there in the market. But I wish them all the best as they go on. And that's it. That's going to do it for the news. Thanks, y'all. Thanks for listening. We'll be back again next week, Tuesday, to talk about more news. Let's play some disco. Well, I don't know. I'm going to take a break and then we'll decide what the hell we're going to do. I think some Disco Elysium is in order. Otherwise, maybe